Hello? Says I'm talking, so that must mean something.
Have you ever done that before?
Test speak. Hey,
Okay.
got it. Cheapers. Yes. Okay. Please don't do that again.
When are we supposed to start? 3 minutes?
Yeah. I wonder if this is on the video here.
If you go down to participants,
I see. Start video.
there you go. No. Do you want to hear a replay?
No.
Temporarily unmuted. Hi, Gary. Gary. Hi, Gary. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
I'm glad you can hear me. Say hi, Jess.
Hi, Steve. I was making sure she was all set up before I go to the club.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Required to wear a mask in class. Danger.
Didn't hear from you today, Mr. Chapman.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, this is Dorothy Red. I hear you.
Okay, I'm having trouble with my Zoom thing, so I'm on my phone right now, but I don't see anybody else. Is it just me and you on this link right now?
Well, no, Angie's on. Gary Anderson is on someplace. Steve is on.
Okay,
And I thought I saw Keith McDonald.
all right, well,
It's Dave
I don't
Kelly.
know what's wrong, but I'm having a hard time here. If I can't see anybody, I don't know how I'm gonna run the meeting. Let me just, give me a second, let me try.
You might have to go out and come in again.
Maybe, I don't know. I only see you for some reason.
I have trouble all the time getting in. But
Can
today,
you see, do you see me on the screen?
yeah, I see you. I see Dave Kelly. I see Keith
Okay,
McDonald.
wait. All right, now,
I see Steve
is the-
Schultz name, Angie Goral.
okay, this is weird.
We'll call Gus.
Oh, you know what? If everyone can hear me, just give me a second. Let me go get my paperwork. We'll just,
Yeah, we don't have to see you.
right. To run the meeting, just instead of raising hands, people just have to speak up.
Yep.
There's not that many of us on the call. Okay. All right. Let me see what we got here. All right, well, we'll call the meeting to order. I'm having some computer issues, so I can't see everyone as easily as I normally do. So if you want to speak and be recognized, just shout out, ask to be recognized. So it's Monday, August 17th, 5:38 p.m. This is the Housing Subcommittee meeting, call to order. For all those members that are present, please say your name.
Dorothy Red.
David Kelly.
Is Angie Gorel with us?
She's muted.
Okay.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. And Steve Schultz? Yes. I see Steve signed in, but no video. Okay. For now, we don't know if Steve's on.
He's on.
Steve Chapman's here,
Okay.
but I don't know about
There he
Steve Schultz.
Steve
I
Schultz is
see
here.
Steve now.
There he is. There's Steve Schultz.
Right.
Now
Yeah,
we
I
see you.
him.
Okay. I think I'm
Okay.
about done with Zoom meetings myself, but anyway. Mr. Chapman, do we have anybody for public comment this evening? I'll take that as a no.
I don't see Mr. Chapman.
I see him. Mr. Chapman, do we have anybody for public comment?
He's not mute. He's muted.
Okay.
There he is.
No,
Thank you.
sorry.
That's all right. So the first agenda item is a land bank update. We have our land bank representative, Gary Anderson, with us this evening. We've, I think, just had one report since we joined the land bank. So I think, I don't know if Mr. Anderson, if you have some stuff you want to share with us, if you just want to take some questions. Is there anything that you would like to say to us before we present questions to you? You're muted, sir. I can't hear you.
Neither can I.
We might just have to scrap this meeting and reconvene in person next week or something.
He's muted.
I no longer see him on the screen.
No, he disappeared. He's gone. Wow.
We do have
Well-
our with us.
Okay, I see. I can't really see. It's a small image. I can't see. Is that Mr. Dunn and Mr. Setter?
Yes.
Here.
All right. Well, until Mr. Anderson gets back with us, maybe,
Can you hear me now?
I do hear you. Yes, great.
Yeah.
Please go ahead if there's something you want to share with us, and then if there's questions from the committee, we'll present them.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me yet?
I hear you.
Okay. Join here so that we can provide much more details, because the land bank has just finally acquired its first property. And, for and occurring to provide the legal work that we really need to do for all these properties.
Okay.
And also some of the properties that are occurring.
Okay, so you were cutting out there a little bit on my end, so I couldn't, you said that you acquired your first property. You know, Mr. Dunn or Mr. Setter, can you
I'm
fill in the
gonna-
gaps?
Yeah, I'm going to stop the video and maybe that
Okay,
details that Eric and Mike can really help with that. Eric?
Yeah, so we actually acquired our first 6 properties. 2 of them are in Winnebago County. Our first one, we had bidding completed and are in the process of going to our board for approval to sell the property. That one is 304 South 2nd Street, just a couple blocks off of State Street downtown. 2-family unit residence, had a lot of bidders, a lot of interest in it, so very happy with the outcome of that. The next house, which we are finishing up with the legal and administrative work in Winnebago County, is 3207 Blackstone. Much different property. It is a small little ranch property right behind West Middle School, give or take. It seems to be in good shape. Haven't been in it yet. We'll probably be going in it this week and assessing it. So properties in Winnebago County are moving along. And then we've acquired 2 properties in Belvedere that will be going through a different process based upon IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority's request. They have grant funds given to the city of Belvedere that are unused, and IDA asked if they can use those grant funds to put new roofs on the houses that the land bank acquired. So typically, we acquire a property, sell it as is, as quickly as possible. We don't want to be holding on to the title to the property. But in that case, the city of Belvedere will be holding on to it while a new roof is put on with IDA funds, which gets them into compliance with the grant and also helps them move properties out of the land bank a little bit smoother. And then also 2 properties in Freeport have been acquired. Those will be same timeline as Blackstone for those 2. We should be having those up for sale in the next week and a half or so. So moving along, we should have been done with these properties, the ones that we acquired in April. When the court shut down, we were just a couple of days away from a court date, and that all got pushed back. So we're finding our initial timeline to acquire a property from board approval identification to a deed in hand is going to be right around 6 to 7 months, we think. With some properties maybe more difficult than others, but generally what we expected, being the first properties, we had kept our expectations tempered, but seem to be going well so far. And the goal is to use the grant funds to acquire and sell as many of these properties as we can. 1 to 4 unit single family houses is what the grant funds allow us to acquire. Then we will sell those, and then the revenue from those sales can be reinvested back in doing it over and over. So the goal is to sell them for as much as we can, but more than we acquired it for, which is just legal expenses. So happy to go into detail on any of that, but that's kind of where we're at as of today. 6 properties acquired with probably 10 to 12 more in the pipeline coming down.
so Mr. Setter, what was the method that these properties were acquired? I know we talked about using the county's authority to declare properties as abandoned. Was that part of it, or were these tax delinquent properties? How did you go about acquiring the 2 in Winnebago County?
The tax delinquent and abandoned go hand in hand. So in order to be abandoned, it typically has to be tax delinquent. So this property on 2nd Street, for example, is the one I've dug into the most. We had to clear, there were about $40,000 of back taxes. The previous owner actually thought he lost it through a tax sale to a tax buyer. There was a sale in error. So that property would have been in his hands for another 2 years, give or take, before it would have been available to either a tax buyer or the trustee, whatever path it was going down. So all of these properties were acquired through the abandoned property statute. That is what we have. That's how we plan to acquire all of the properties under the IDA grant. And then we know that's a low-cost way to acquire property. They're identified typically by the municipalities as properties of interest that they know that the owners have walked away. They know that from a building inspection that they're structurally sound, the structure's still intact for the most part. This one happened to be at one of the main entrances to Highgate Village. So it was visually more of a blight than your typical property. So all of those factors led them to the property on South Second, which is how we ended up with that one. So it's a little bit of what properties are a priority for the municipality, and then what properties qualify as abandoned.
So the court gave you a deed for this property?
Yes, a judicial deed.
Okay. And when we passed that resolution or ordinance, whichever it was, we put something there to notify the board of these, that process taking place. Did you do that in this case?
This one was a city, we didn't actually use that resolution. This was the city of Rockford. So the city of Rockford technically got the deed and then they deeded the property to us. So this was not technically a Winnebago County property.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Who else has questions for either Mr. Anderson or Mr. Dunn or Mr. Setter? Just speak up if you do. I'm having trouble seeing everyone, so if you want to speak, chime in. Okay.
32, this is Angie, 3207 Blackstone. Is that bank owned?
I believe there was a bank involved at one point. I don't know who the most recent owner is. I haven't gotten to that yet.
I know it's been vacant for quite a few years.
Yes.
And I've been in it. It's pretty distressed. Be careful when you go in there. There's some little things like living creatures in there. So don't.
For the warning.
Okay. Are the land bank, I saw actually it probably is my district, the corner of Main Street and Bridge Street in Roscoe was a trustee property that was for sale. And then after, or I don't know when the sign showed up, but there was a sign on it that said it was for sale from the land bank. So did the land bank acquire that property from the trustee program?
No, that was simply a trustee property. The signs say Regional Planning Council Land Bank. So all of the properties flow through the standard RPC website and go for sale that way. So once you get to the site, it explains it's a trustee property. The signs just say Land Bank from when we bought them.
Okay, I see. And then, so like the property you have now, 304 South 2nd Street, are using the same website that you sell the trustee properties to market those properties?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? All right. Hearing none, then we will move on. Agenda item E is response from the municipalities on rejecting buyers. Mr. Chapman tells me that no one responded. So Steve, you gave the deadline was August 7th, or was it August 14th to respond?
I believe it was August 7th.
Okay. Mr. Dunn, there are there buyers that the municipality is seeking to reject right now?
No, thank you. Good evening, everyone. At the conclusion of our last and first auction, we gave every municipality where there was a subject property in the municipal limits a 7-day window to notify us if they objected to the high bidder of the transaction. And every municipality except for Rockford was non-responsive. For full disclosure, McChesney Park contacted us after the 7 days and voiced some concern, and recognizing that they were asleep at the switch, so to speak, and they quickly remedied it with the would-be buyer, where we would not need to be involved. But other than those situations, Rockford was the only one that raised objections, and we communicated the objections to Mr. Chapman and to Chairman Haney, and at that point, our role was complete.
So what happened with those sales?
I'm sorry.
They're still outstanding at
Yeah,
this point.
we haven't-
We haven't heard
The
back.
county has not notified us on the approach to take.
Okay, well, did Rockford give a reason for rejecting the buyer?
Yes, there was somewhat up in the high 90s of code violations for each of the buyers. For code
90 code
violation, historical code violations with the city of Rockford. And so based on the number of code violations for each of those buyers, and then the chairman did ask for supporting documentation. So City Hall sent the chairman's office, and I believe Mr. Chapman was on the email, supporting documentation on substantiating their objection. Eric, I believe you had some that had a backup bid and some that did not.
Correct. Yes.
Right, but the issue is the chairman's not involved in this process. It has to come to the board.
Well, Mr. Arena, we're fine with however the county works on it. We're simply waiting for the county's response. Our job as agent is to transmit our work to the county administrator representing the board and the county chairman. What you do from that point is up to you. However, I would again urge you to understand that the county chairman cannot be compelled by any entity to complete a sale. And I put those thoughts in a memo that our lawyer put together to Mr. Chapman, that the county board can have whatever process it wants to have with the chairman, and based on our agreement can prevent a lower bid from being complete. But if the city objects to the high bidder and the chairman goes along with the city's recommendation, there's nothing we can do. There's no other recourse into getting that high bidder that property. From my understanding, the way the program is constructed, only the chairman can authorize a sale.
Only the chairman can authorize a sale?
Yes, sir.
So you're saying the chairman can prevent the sale, but the chairman can't reject the high bidder?
Yes, sir. The way that you and I discussed this in the infancy is that transparency is always good, and having additional sets of eyes is always good. And what happens if a lower bidder than the high bidder, in some underhanded way or some nefarious way, gets favorable advantage in a transaction? And in that case, we all agreed that having the county board review the circumstances and the facts was a very good thing. And so in the event that the city, a municipality, and remember, the municipality has no binding authority. There's no municipality in this program has any binding authority whatsoever. So if a municipality makes an advisory motion requesting the county to reject the high bidder, then the matter goes to the county board, which it has. We've transmitted that issue to the chairman and the county administrator. It goes to the county board for review. So the county board can see, and in a very transparent way, why is the high bidder being rejected and who is the backup bid? And the county board can prevent the chairman from selling it to a backup bid. That the county board can do from our interpretation of how this program is structured. The problem is, what if a bid is rejected by the city or requested to be rejected by the city? The county chairman agrees with it, whoever that county chairman is, and there is no backup bid. The county board does not have a role to play as it stands today, because there is no backup bid. There is no lower bid. There was only one bid, and it was rejected by the chairman.
May I ask a question, please? So what you're saying, that this property that was rejected, had $90,000 worth of code violations? I mean, it was $90,000, but it had code violations from the city on the title. Is that correct?
No, County Board Member Goral, no, and I'm sorry if I was unclear. And forgive me, I don't have the exact amount, but I want to say there was 97 or 98 different code violation instances by this body.
97 or 98 code violations.
Yes, and therefore they felt it was an unfit buyer and somebody who had already shown a poor track record of ownership within the city.
So,
As I recall, on that on the application, it asks what the person is going to do with the property. Is that correct?
Yes.
So why was this person buying a property that had all those code violations on it, or did that person not know at the time that it had all the code violations on it?
Pardon me, Ms. Goral, the code violations were code violations incurred by that potential buyer. They were not code violations on the subject property. The subject property probably has a lot of issues with it. However, when I say 97 or 98 code violations, that's attributing it to the would-be buyer. The buyer had a past history of those many code violations with the city of Rockford.
Had the buyer corrected all the code violations from the past?
We have paperwork. I'm not prepared to answer that. The paperwork the city provided showed the history of those code violations and the resolution of them.
I've sold property that has code violations on it that sells for cash. And once the person takes and fixes all the code violations, then the city will give it a permit to live it for people to live in it again. They will erase the code violations once they've all been fixed. So
Yes.
I don't understand.
I'm going to let Eric go into detail, but again, I want to be very clear that it wasn't our discretion or our judgment that rejected the bid. It was a request by
The city itself and didn't go in to look to see if that person had corrected all the past code violations.
Well, I'm going to let Eric answer your question, but
Okay,
again, to be very clear, it was a request based on that history by the city. It wasn't some sort of status or some sort of subjective decision that we made based on the person's history. It was a request from the city of Rockford. But go ahead, Eric.
And the request from the city had to do with the buyer as an individual or a property owner, not about the subject property. So if a buyer owned 5 other properties in the city and they had code violations on each of those 5 properties, that's what the issue was. The subject properties that we're selling do have a lot of code violations and issues with them that the city has been helpful with to rectify. But in these instances, the city knew of the buyers and had raised issue to the county saying we would prefer you not sell to these people because we've dealt with them in whether it's a hearing officer, whether it's circuit court, and a number of different ways. And then they submitted how many properties they own, how many code violations they have, and then the outstanding fees and fines that buyer has on properties they currently own. So the city's just simply saying, we have some discretion, we meaning government and Winnebago County. So they're simply asking the county to not let this person own another property or sell this property to that property owner.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman. Apparently this owner is Harold Susky, and I'm sure you know the history of Harold Susky.
I think there's 5 or 6 that the city identified. So it's not just, I'm not talking about one property owner when I'm speaking.
I understand that. He's probably addressing it to me because I remember those days, and I don't even know if Harold's around anymore. He was using that as an example. But I guess I would have to ask, I could have 5 houses that have all at one time or another had code violations on it, but I have taken care of those code violations. And that's, I guess, what I'd like to know. Had the man or person or organization, it could have been any of those things, Yeah, they might have had, say, 20 violations on 5 homes, but were those violations all taken care of, or are they all outstanding yet?
The city provided photographs of current conditions of properties by the buyers that they're objecting to. So all of that was passed along, including whatever date, I don't remember, it was probably sometime June, July, that the city went out and took current photographs of other properties that these people own as their backup documentation that the chairman asked for.
My other
So-
question is, with R1, how many, because I think I saw where you had sold enough properties for what, about 400,000, am I correct?
Yes.
There was
Yeah.
about 400,000. So is there a list of those properties that we could see that you have sold? And I could give them to the chairman? Did you give that list to the chairman?
I believe he has that. We can get an updated list as of today, which properties of those have completed transactions.
That would be a wonderful idea. I'm sorry he has not passed those properties on to us. We have a problem sometimes with him not passing on information to the board, and so we're in the dark. So if we seem to be in the dark, we are in the dark. We have no recollection of what these properties are.
We can get that tomorrow, yes.
Would you please? I would appreciate that. If someone else would like to talk, go ahead, because I have something else I want to ask about.
Okay, so to the heart of this issue, what we are looking for is consistency. We don't want to expose the county to liability because one buyer gets rejected and another buyer is not rejected, but they might have had, I don't know, what can be perceived as similar circumstances with violations. I know when we were going through this new program, when first coming on with R1, I had looked at the state of Michigan. Was somebody had pointed to that and said, I think it came from the state's attorney's office, that they had an established program that was successful. So this morning I looked at their criteria, and a person who is delinquent has any ownership interest in a property that's currently tax delinquent, or has unpaid fines due for property maintenance code violations, is ineligible to be a buyer in Michigan. I wonder if we could use similar criteria here to decide who is ineligible to buy. And that way we're not making a subjective decision about one buyer over another buyer. What would your thought
we
be?
welcome any ways to tighten up the screening of would-be bidders. We saw strong cross-section of individuals bidding on properties on this first auction. I will, I guess, again, remind everyone that that there's two things occurring, in my opinion, neither of which involve any subjectivity from the Regional Planning Council acting as your agent. We have no subjectivity, nothing but objectivity in how we're conducting our agency. But there are two subjective pinch points. The first subjective pinch point is a municipality has a right, and different municipalities might have different goals or different standards. McChesney Park might want to have a better standard in their mind than the city of Rockford. And so as far as the municipalities are concerned, I think you cannot avoid that they will make subjective recommendations. However, that's all they are recommendations. The municipality cannot stop a sale or encourage a sale. But then once that advisory recommendation gets to the county, how the county, between the chairman's office, the state's attorney, and the county board, want to structure a standard is fully within your right. I can't speak towards the powers between the board and the chairman, but at the end of the day, we are your agent in total, and however you want us to authorize sales is how we'll do it.
Now that you mentioned that, there was another element to Michigan's code that I can't remember the exact language, but essentially, if a municipality itself had set a standard that someone's an ineligible buyer in their municipality, then that also made them ineligible as a tax buyer. So this is a statewide program. So they're looking at, to your point, Mr. Dunn, different communities might have different standards. And I wonder if we could have something similar. So if Rockford wanted to establish its criteria for who they want to buy in their community, we could just honor their designation. I don't know, that would be a question to vet with the state's attorney's office. But I don't know, any other members of this committee have opinion on how we can establish a policy that's uniformly applied and does not expose us to liability over the rejection of buyers?
Probably.
Mr. Schultz, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that I love the idea of standardization, and it seems that at the county level, we might have sort of the minimum requirements and then allow for the municipalities to add their additional items to that for the properties that are specifically within their area.
All right. Well, I guess I don't see us finding a resolution to this now. We're going to have a conversation with the state's attorney. So, Mr. Dunn, if you could just say it one more time, the chairman, he can't reject the high bidder, but you can't make him sell it to the high bidder. Is that essential?
From the legal advice that we were given, based on kind of the statewide, not just in Winnebago County, but how the program is structured in state statute, is that the county chairman at the end of the day is the one authorized to sign the deed. Is that correct, Eric? So whether the county chairman is elected at large, elected from within the board, is part-time, is full-time, is executive form of government, township form of government, the state statute is blind to all of that. At the end of the day, the chairman of the board, period, is the person that will authorize a sale. And so what we did in our agreement was say that we would not go to someone other than the high bidder without the county board's approval. So nobody other than the high bidder can just automatically get the property without all of your approval. And that was a way to add transparency to a real estate transaction process, which we supported. We thought it was a great idea.
Okay. I think we need to have some internal conversation about how that communication is going to happen for us. And we'll talk with the state's attorney's office about this criteria and having the municipalities set a standard that they want applied for their.
Well, and County Board Member Rita, if I can have a point of personal privilege, my advice, having gone through this now for the last year, is that I think the more substantial or the value-added way of doing all this is to let the county set a standard. Because I think from our experience, municipalities do kind of come at this differently. They have different lawyers, for example, right? Each municipality has a different legal temperament. And so I think if we do that, we're opening up, we're not starting off in the most grounded way. My advice to you as your agent is for the county board to set a minimum criteria that would probably be agreeable by all, and then go from there. I think that whether you're South Beloit or Cherry Valley or Rockford, you're going to find that there's different priorities for different type of properties. There might be a commercial property that South Beloit is going to look at differently than a residential property. And so I'm not being eloquent right now, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm a little hesitant in not allowing the municipalities to make a subjective advisory request. I think they want that, probably that flexibility. And I would think it's safer and more streamlined and succinct by having the county set a bar.
So you're saying don't let the municipalities make a subjective determination on who's going to buy?
No, I think you continue as we have set it up for the last year. I think you allow them to continue being purely subjective or objective, it's up to them, but you let them determine how they want to advise, and you just let them, and you take it under advisement, right? And you can apply Chairman Haney did, and we did process it. He did immediately say no to the city of Rockford, and he asked for additional supporting material. And then the city of Rockford did send that additional supporting material. That process worked. I apologize if you have not seen that material, but we did send it to multiple people at the county. And I believe Chris Thornbush as well. And so people in the county administration have that material. And I think that part of the process actually works. The cities and their attorneys had their own reasons, but they submitted them. And I think it's up to the county to be the clearinghouse, so to speak, because you are the trustee, not the municipalities.
Right, but our concern over time is if we're rejecting people for criteria that's not clearly defined, we're opening ourselves up to an accusation that we're not treating everyone equally. Right, there has to be a standard.
Yeah, but the standard should, again, not to go around the merry-go-round, I think, in my opinion, the standard should be held and managed at the county level.
Should be what? You broke up there.
You should allow the municipalities the freedom to object for whatever reason, and the standard should be applied and held and maintained at the county level. I think that you acting as a clearinghouse is the best method in taking whatever standard the county agrees on that the state attorney's office endorses as a way to shield legal liability, and apply that to all the requests that come in from the municipalities. But we do this all the time on a host of subjects, whether it's transportation or economic development or housing. Housing is another good one, right? Public housing. Different municipalities can have different standards, and I just think it's unavoidable. It's going to be a very small needle to thread if you're trying to find one that all the municipalities will agree on. I think if the county starts with, like you referenced Michigan, that basic minimum criteria that everybody should agree to, I think that's a good first step, and I'm sure the municipalities will respect it and appreciate it.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
I'm assuming this is all about the trustee program, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
What did our past trustee do? Because the past trustee, and I thought that is what you were going to be doing, R1, was to take the place of our trustee. I don't remember any properties coming back to us in Winnebago County because it's all about not about the taxes. Those are tax sales that we sent over. Why does other municipalities have to say anything about it when it's our taxes? I don't ever remember us ever having to approve anything the past trustee had sold or not sold or had or auctioned or whatever. We were interested in getting the tax money back.
This is new, Ms. Gorel. We weren't doing it before.
I understand this is new, but if this is what our new trustee is, then we need to go back and review the whole thing because it's about Winnebago County taxes, not about municipalities.
So, Ms. Gorel,
I want to hear that, Mr. Kurlinkus. Mr. Kurlinkus, would you correct me? Is this not about our tax money?
The taxes that you're getting that are coming back are distributed 100%. They're supposed to be distributed 100% to the taxing districts. Those are the ones. I think what Mr. Arena said is that this is a program plus. In other words, this is a little different than what you had in place before. Is that right, Paul? I mean, I think that's what you were saying.
Right, that there was no rejection of buyers previously. This component of the program was added in when we switched from the prior agent to R1.
So,
So this is
Mr. Arena,
something
is it okay if I clarify a few things?
Yeah,
Thank you. Ms. Goral, first, we're not the trustee. We're your agent. The trustee and the former agent was Ballinger, but the county has always been the trustee. We're simply the agent. We have no statutory authority whatsoever. It is only the county that does. In the past, I can't answer, but I can't tell you yes or no if the former agent would reject bids. If he did, I can tell you there was no oversight over it. There was no standard applied if he rejected bids. It was a discretionary call by your agent. I believe that this structure is infinitely improved and modern and better because now there is oversight if your agent rejects a bid. Multiple people will find out instantly. Secondly, the county being the trustee doesn't change the fact that under your former agent Ballinger and your new agent us, the county chairman, for whatever reason, cannot authorize a sale. And there's not really anything we can all do about it. So whether we're the agent or Ballinger, the former agent is the agent, it really makes no difference in your concern about oversight. I appreciate calling this plus because I do, in my heart, believe that this is an improvement. It allows municipalities to have a voice where in the past they felt they did not have a voice. It gives them a way to exercise that voice without forcing the county's hand. And it allows there to be multiple layers of transparency and understanding, and it allows conversations like this tonight where we can talk to Mr. Arena's very solid point about adding minimum standards onto how we qualify a bidder. We spoke about qualifying bidders 2 years ago, and nobody wanted to do it. Everybody felt that that would be too drastic. But now with recent success and seeing that there's a strong private market interest in these properties, we're back to talking about qualifying bidders. That's a good thing. But understand that we are bringing more tax dollars back to Winnebago County as your agent than your former agent ever did. We are making sure that interest payments on tax redemptions stay back to taxing districts. We are not giving municipalities any money. Municipalities are not taking any money from the county. The only difference is that a portion of the program expenses after tax receipts are dispersed are covering maintenance costs to avoid municipalities leaning property because it was the leaning of property that prevented future sales. So we have unwound that knot, so to speak, to allow more properties to be sold and more properties not to be having municipal liens placed on them. And at the same time, generating more tax revenue, both in redemption interest and in higher sales prices for the county and the other tax codes. And remember, the county is the only taxing district that's in every tax code. So when we talk about, which I think we're going to talk about in a few minutes, redemption interest, understand that that's not R1's money. That's not the RPC's money. We're doing this for free. I'll state that again. We're acting as your agent for free. This is your money. And so when we keep redemption interest, it is not the county giving R1 redemption interest. It's the county giving the county redemption interest, as well as all the other school districts and park districts and sanitary districts and fire protection districts. So this is all very confusing. We're willing to have these conversations weekly because it's that confusing. But we are not the trustee, the county is. And that's why I'm being hesitant to say, let's have the municipalities all agree to a standard, because in my mind, that's somewhat inappropriate. I think it is the function of the trustee to set the rules of sale.
right. Yeah, we'll discuss with the state's attorney's office what's the best scenario for protecting the county from liability and rejecting of buyers. And we'll just have to come up with something, and everyone will live with it, I assume. I mean, they don't really have a choice, but okay. So on the topic of rejecting buyers, does anyone else have any questions or any input they want to add? Hearing none. The next agenda item, trustee transition. On this subject, we want to not get too specific on any issues related to our prior agent, since we have ongoing litigation and we're attempting to settle that. But I know some of us may have questions about how things are operating now. My question in particular is when the standards for who can buy, I was told that we had, setting the minimum bid price. I believe that no employee of the county can buy these properties. Is that correct, Mr. Dunn?
On the last
I just
auction. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Yes, the rules of sale, I think, is what you're getting at. That is the minimum bid price and stuff is set by the chairman per our IGA or designated staff member.
No, but can an employee of the county buy properties from the program?
Yes, that was determined by the state's attorney's office and
I'm sorry, yes?
council. The short answer is yes.
Okay. And so when you have a minimum bid price at the auction and no one bids the minimum bid, then is that property open to any bid following the sale? They're always for sale, right?
Eventually they will be. We turned them off so we could get through the cycle of selling the properties, but we're going to have them up. We've got 300 or so more properties coming into the program next week, I believe. So then we'll add those to the list, anything that doesn't sell, and that is up to the chairman if they still have a minimum bid, if they have no minimum bid, if the rules are changed. But after that, after we get through these cycles, then they will be continuously for sale with the rule of sale set by the chairman or designated staff member.
Okay, because I think all of us are eager to make sure that we don't hold on to these properties any longer than we have to the point that if they're not going to sell, just let's give them to somebody so we're not having to maintain them.
Correct.
So we feel that our results exceeded expectations in the first auction. Far exceeded results. I think that backs up my earlier point to Ms. Gorel that because we're not just having one random auction at Rockford College that nobody knows about every 2 years, but because we're daily marketing these properties on our website and having reoccurring auctions throughout the years, that we are having more a larger universe of specific buyers. And we have how many people were on the website the last day, Biddy?
700 or something.
So we had 700 individuals on the last day on our website, unique individuals, looking at properties to bid on. So I believe that everything we promised by taking this approach and modernizing our sales process has beared fruit. I guess what I would say is in regards to all of that is that brings higher sales pricing and higher dollar amounts back to the county and the other government coffers. We believe that at the end of the day, the chairman, whoever that chairman is, sets the rules of sale. And so if the chairman wants to lower the minimum price, if he or she wants to have more frequent auctions, we'll do whatever the chairman asks us to do. We believe that $500 as a minimum bid is a good threshold. It worked this last round. If we find the same properties sitting there collecting dust after the second auction, we might make a recommendation back to the chairman's office to adjust the minimum bid. We are also working with other taxing districts throughout the county to figure out adaptive repurposing of some of these lots that probably won't sell and creative ways to repurpose that land and get it in the hands of either a different government entity or to donate it to a nonprofit.
Okay, so you only had one auction so far and you're getting ready to do a second one?
Yes, sir. We're waiting for additional properties to enter the program. The only properties we're not going anywhere near on any regard are properties that the state's attorney has asked us not to market and not to sell and not to maintain as they were in queue with your former agent.
Right. Okay. And, but you're saying eventually the properties will be available for sale at all times on the website, or maybe not? Maybe you're going to do it all by scheduled auctions?
So both. They're always available for, where one can see them and show interest and favorite them or mark them or follow them. But for right now, while we get things going and we're taking more properties and trying to get, other properties sold, we decided to put a pause on bidding. And you put it perfectly, Mr. Arena, we're going to have another scheduled quote unquote auction. At some point, we're going to have rolling auction periods.
Okay. And so you said the first auction sold, you got $400,000 total in sales?
Yeah, in gross bids, 400,000. Some properties, the bidder, after doing their due diligence, decided to walk away. In others, we have that situation with the city of Rockford where the city of Rockford asked for a couple to be stopped. In some cases, we have them still in queue because the bidder is waiting to work out with the municipality, different municipalities, by the way, not just one, how to get liens removed and having that village board or city council vote to remove the liens. Because remember, in the land bank, the liens are removed. On the trustee properties, the liens are not removed.
Right. So, well, the liens that were placed on after we
Exactly.
took a trustee,
Yep.
right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, so what's the value of what's closed so far?
Right about 330,000.
330. Okay. And how long do you expect it to be until you know if any of the other $70,000 in value is going to close? I mean, how long are you going to have that out?
Next 2 weeks, we've had the city of Rockford has put together some lien releases that Mike was talking about, a couple title issues. So we should get a chunk of that done in the next 2 or 3 weeks, give or take, depending on timing and recording and all those issues.
But we're waiting to have the agenda at the Rockford City Council going for city council approval.
Okay. All right. I don't know if I have any other questions. Does anyone else have questions?
Yes, this is Steve Schultz. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I hear you.
Okay, previously I was on the call and I guess my volume wasn't working, so I logged out, logged back in, so I apologize for that. But as I'm listening to the process, so much of this is happening between Region 1 and the chairman's office that we're not aware of, that when Mr. Chapman, your position, I'm being told, if I'm hearing it right, is being copied on all of the important correspondence. So if that's the case, then I'm making an appeal to the county administrator's office to please provide that information to this subcommittee or to Mr. Arena so that we have more information than we do now. We're asking a lot of questions that, in my view, we should already have the data in front of us. We should already have the information available. In summary form is fine for some of it, but at some point we may want to delve into the detail. But this absence of information, I think, is something that, and Mr. Arena, you're the chairman, you have opportunity to give perspective on this, but it seems to me like there's more that we should have, at least as members of the subcommittee.
Yeah, I agree. We do need to talk internally about how to get better communication between the chairman's office and the board on the details of the program. And, probably just what we're doing now, go directly to our agent, might be helpful too, but we definitely need to have some internal conversation. But until we, if Mr. Chapman, if you could copy us, me and or just all the members of this committee on events that happen as they happen, I think that would be helpful.
No problem.
Mr. Arena, we have a concern.
Yes, go
As
ahead.
far as being able to provide you real-time information to Mr. Schultz's point, we have a concern that there's a tremendous amount of redemption interest that is due to the program from the date that we took over the agency of the program, that if not remitted to us, will cause the program to go into the negative, both on service cost to the sheriff, on skip trace cost, on legal cost, on recording cost, maintenance cost. There are a number of costs associated with the program that are month to month. And without that redemption interest entering into the program, it prevents us from rightfully distributing the sales proceeds, to Ms. Gorel's point, to the taxing districts. And so the beauty of this program plus, to refer to that again, is that redemption interest was no longer going to be paid 100% to your former agent as flat revenue to that agent. Instead, our attitude was that the redemption interest would be added to the gross sales, and program costs would be paid first, and then the net would be distributed to all the different tax codes. We are concerned on a cash flow basis that since no redemption interest has been paid and a tremendous amount has been generated since October, when the contract took place, that it's not the county holding back the money to help the county, because again, the money would then be redistributed back to the county. But the money is somehow in limbo, and per our IGA and written agreement, it really needs to be dispersed to the program.
Right. I understand your concern and the point you're making. We need to have some conversations internally on what's going on, and that is going to happen to resolve that. I also, do you guys, Mr. Dunn or Mr. Setter, have a financial statement, something that can show us the expenses of the program since you've taken over, so we could see, what the money's being spent on? So we advanced $150,000 for maintenance, right? From the
No.
host fee?
Mr. Arena, you advanced 75,000. We have not requested the additional 75 because based on the redemption interest and the sales, there was really no reason to ask you for the additional 75. So you advanced 75, and if that redemption interest is submitted to us, the first bill that gets paid is the 75,000 for the host fee. So if you owe, is it 130? 199?
I remember 199.
So roughly $200,000 is owed to the program just in redemption interest. If we receive that $200,000 in redemption interest, which again is not the county's money, it is every taxing district's money per our agreement, that you are not giving your municipalities and your other school districts their rightful redemption interest by not remitting it to the program. And so if you were to remit the 200,000 correctly to the program, the first bill that would be paid would be the $75,000 host fee loan. And then we would never need to borrow from the county again.
Okay, well, that's all right. That's good to know. So we're aware of your concern, and we are going to continue to quickly try to find a resolution to it. So this week, there's going to be ongoing conversation so that we can determine what has happened, why it happened, and what's going to happen in the future. And we will make sure that we communicate that to you.
Thank you very much.
What other questions do any of the committee members have? Anybody? All right. With that, are there any other matters for this committee to address? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Schultz, second
Dorothy Red.
by Dorothy Red. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Dunn, Mr. Setter, Mr. Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you.